got today is going to be Persona. And I am going to call on a second objective of the day today is to learn about book summaries and analysis. So we're first going to watch a couple of videos. The first video is actually the process of book summaries and analysis and guidelines for doing them. This is something that is part of your student guide, and you have to perform 3 a week with your chapters. This will help you in doing your final essay. The second video you're going to watch is actually a summary of the book itself, The Hate You Give. So I'm going to have you watch these, and then we'll have some discussion and take questions on what you have on and do some examples.
Summary versus analysis, a la Schmuck. We get all kinds of assignments in English class. Obviously, there's reading, and more reading. But we're also expected to write intelligently about what we read. Enter the essay. Well, there are 2 types of essays we commonly sweat over in English class. Although we might find these essays haunting us elsewhere too. They are the summary essay and the analysis essay. Well, summaries are easy, so easy. They're simply a brief restatement of whatever text we read, put in our own words. We don't have to have an opinion. We don't have to evaluate anything. A summary only wants the facts, Jags. For example, say we're asked to write a summary of George R.R. Martin's epic novel, A Game of Thrones. Here's ours. Winter is coming, and so are the murderous ice zombies. Ned Stark of Winterfell dips his toe in the pool of political intrigue and then promptly wishes he hadn't. Good things happen to bad people, bad things happen to good people, and the Stark family gets ripped apart. The end. Now, obviously, a summary essay will consist of more than this, but note how all we're doing here is retelling the story in our own pithy words. While summaries are all about conveying what happened in the text and nothing more, an analysis is a little more complex. In this type of essay, we break what we read into smaller components so we can get a better grip on the whole. So let's go back to A Game of Thrones. In an analysis essay, we're not going to spend the assignment regurgitating the story. We've got 1 paragraph up front to get that business out of the way. Instead, we're going to ask ourselves some questions like, why does Martin tell the story from so many different viewpoints, and does this technique work? Why did Martin title his book A Game of Thrones when what goes on in the story, all the dying and incest and getting thrown out of towers and stuff, is so clearly not a game as we normally understand the word game? And why haven't the rulers of Westeros clubbed together to buy a throne made out of something other than swords? When we analyze these questions, which cover smaller parts of a sprawling story, then we'll have a better grasp of the novel as a whole. More generally, what we're looking for when we analyze a text is what the author is arguing for or against, how well he or she supports that argument, and what the strengths and weaknesses of the text are, along with whether the author considers alternative viewpoints or not. As with a summary, we aren't supposed to present our opinion in an analysis, or at least not much of an opinion. We can state whether or not we think the author's argument holds water, or whether the author's sources are reliable or not. But we can't rip the author a new one if we completely disagree with what he or she says. So in brief, a summary is a restatement of what we've read. An analysis contains a breakdown of the text, and we pretty much have to leave our opinions at home when we write these types of essays. The good news is, if we do accidentally slip what we think into an essay, well, we aren't likely to take a sword to the neck like poor old Ned Stark. At least let's hope not.
The novel, The Hate U Give, takes place in Garden Heights, a predominantly black and impoverished urban neighborhood. The protagonist is a teenage girl named Star Carter, a 16-year-old African-American living in Garden Heights while attending the upscale, largely white private school, Williamson Prep. Star is continually navigating both worlds, but as the novel opens, her best friend from childhood, Khalil, is unjustly shot and killed by a cop. The novel follows Star as she transforms her trauma and grief into activism. The main characters include Maverick, or Big Mav Carter, who is Star's father and owns and operates a grocery store in Garden Heights and is a firm believer in the tenets of Black Power. Lisa Carter is Star's mother and registered nurse. She is an invaluable source of support and care for her daughter throughout the novel. She encourages Star to do as much as she is comfortable with in terms of activism and speaking out. Carlos is Lisa's brother who serves as a police officer in the same force with the officer who shot Khalil. He lives in a suburb that is wealthier than Garden Heights. Seven is the older son of Maverick and Aisha and is Star's half-brother. He has a close and supportive relationship with Star, and they play basketball together every month. King is the most notorious gangbanger in the neighborhood, a king lord deeply involved in drug dealing and violent acts. Aisha is King's girlfriend and the mother of Seven and Kenya. Kenya is Star's friend who lives in Garden Heights. She and Star share a brother, since Maverick is Seven's father, and Aisha is the mother of both Kenya and Seven. Devante is an acquaintance of Star's in Garden Heights and a member of King's gang, the King Lords. Chris is Star's white and rich boyfriend who shares Star's love for Jordan sneakers and the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. The novel opens with Star attending a spring break party with her friend Kenya. Star has just started to catch up with Khalil, her best friend from childhood who has entered the dangerous world of drug dealing since Star began attending prep school, when a gang dispute leads to a dance floor gunfight. Star and Khalil flee the scene and are pulled over by a police officer for driving with a broken taillight. The officer pats Khalil down and walks back to his car. When Khalil opens his car door to ask Star if she is okay, the officer opens fire, and Star watches her friend die.
Okay, does anybody have any questions on book summaries? Okay, does anybody have any questions on book summaries? Like I said, we will actually be looking at little bits and pieces of them each week, and throughout the week through some other lessons and projects too. So I think by the time you actually have to really focus and make sure you know how to do one, you're going to have it down pat. So the one thing I do want to do before we go into some reading zone time, to get started on the book, is go over the agenda a little bit and the to-do list for this week. Be sure to stay on task with your chapter readings every day. Remember, next Monday, when we focus more on the book, you will have a quiz over chapters 1 through 4. And be sure to study and finish your key terms. All right, you will have about 10 minutes left in the class time. You can work on your key terms. You can read on the book. Just remember to be quiet and respect the space and the quiet zone for your other classmates. And if you have any questions, feel free to ask me. Thanks.